네, 오늘 스마트 시티 컨퍼런스에
We are here at the Smart City Conference, and thank you everyone for joining us online and offline. Thank you for joining us, particularly despite your busy schedule. I welcome you. We are opening up the future, embracing the people as we build smart cities, and smart cities are no longer something of the future. It has become a reality, and today we will have a meaningful discussion about smart cities, and I'm honored to be here. My name is Kim Yeonjin, and I will lead you through this conference. As you well know, because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we are carrying out this event in accordance to the quarantine guidelines of the government. And so we do not have audience here at the venue. We have only the minimal number of people participating here at this event venue. Despite the difficult situations we are hosting this event, we ask you for your continuous interest and participation, especially through our online platform. The Smart City Conference will listen to the cases of smart cities in Korea and abroad. There are different policies applied to the different smart cities. And as we experience prolonging of the COVID-19, we want to listen to how the different cities of the world are dealing with the situation and applying what types of policies. What is the status of smart cities, and also what kind of efforts are being made to overcome the pandemic situation, and what are the future development for advancement of these smart cities? That will be discussed today. Through these informative discussions, I do believe that you will be able to gain insight, and I ask you to join us until the very end. Let us now begin the Smart City Conference in full-fledged. First off, I would like to invite the Director General for Urban Policy at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the hosting organization of this forum. Please greet him with a big hand as he comes up on stage for his opening remarks. Good afternoon. I am Choi Im-nak, Director General for Urban Policy at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport. I would like to thank you for joining us despite your busy schedules, especially Mayor Jang Duk-cheon of Bhutan City and Chairman Kim Gap-sung of the Smart City Special Committee, Professor Lee Young-sung, Professor Lee Sang-hoon, and Professor Yoon Jung. Thank you for joining us. In addition, I would like to sincerely welcome Mayor Frank Weerwind of the Almere city of the Netherlands, who will inform us about the status of overseas smart cities online, and also Director Miguel Sangalong, of the head of LA Lights in the US, and attendees who are joining us online. Smart cities are the most essential change in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They enhance the quality of life and also help improve the sustainability of the cities by solving city problems at hand. In particular, with the COVID-19 pandemic that began last year, the world's expectations for smart cities as a solution to urban problems are rising. Korea also announced its smart city promotion strategy in 2018 and has been working towards developing global leading smart city models through the concerted efforts of the government, business, and citizens. In Sejong and Busan, a large-scale smart city development project is ongoing. The development is taking place on undeveloped land, and this is actually a case that is hard to find in the world. Also, in 45 cities across the country, endeavors are ongoing to transform cities into a more convenient and safe cities. Smart city technology born from such endeavors are playing a major role amidst the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Urban big data technology and CCTVs have been utilized in the epidemiological investigation system, which has been a great help in identifying the cause of infections more quickly and accurately through the analysis of movement of the confirmed cases. Using the smart technology, GIS technology, we were able to create a COVID-19 comprehensive situation map and solve the issue of supplying masks. There is a saying that to go a long way, you must go together. And as such, it is more meaningful for us to work with other countries around the world, including countries such as the United States and the Netherlands, on this long journey towards developing smart cities. Today, we have with us professors who are experts in this field and members from the Special Committee for Smart Cities to discuss the future and development direction of smart cities in the era of COVID-19. I'm sure that this is conference, a special event prepared at the 5th World Smart City Expo this year, will serve as a meaningful event to present the future direction of smart cities in preparation for the age of living with COVID-19. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us online and offline. Thank you very much.
네,
Yes, thank you very much. We have just heard from Director General Choi Im-luk. He gave a very meaningful opening speech. He talked about the significance and meaning of smart cities in our lives today, and also he mentioned that the journey towards building smart cities should be a journey of partnership and cooperation. And in that sense, I think it's even more meaningful that many people are joining us today. Thank you. Now, we will listen to our foreign speakers' presentations. We have prepared a presentation video, and the first presentation will be the new urgency for sustainability, resiliency, and the future of work. And Miguel Sangalang, former deputy mayor of Los Angeles, will give the first presentation.
Hello, everyone. To start off, I want to ask a question just to keep in the back of your mind. Between 2019 and 2021, have the goals of your city changed much, if at all? My name is Miguel Sangalang, and I serve Los Angeles as the Director of Bureau of Street Lighting, and formerly as the Deputy Mayor of Budget and Innovation for Mayor Eric Garcetti. In this city of angels, we have a history of adoption and adaptation. One example I like to share is our traffic signal synchronization program. It has its origins back to the 1984 Olympics, as our residents were concerned with traffic congestion. The city took on a challenge of providing a better roadway experience during the event. We created a network of traffic signals that would be centrally controlled and adjusted depending on the situation. It was a success, and actually it continues to this day and is responsible for about 10% improvement in travel times. In 2009, LA was an early adopter of LED technology for streetlights and eventually converted the majority of its system to LEDs. It was our first foray into smart, as we added smart nodes to about 20% of our network. That purpose was for monitoring and dynamic control. Now, the second part is actually sustainable, as we were ultimately able to save tens of thousands of metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions and approximately $15 million annually. Expanding more into sustainability, we worked with our Department of Water and Power to become the largest municipal deployment of electric chargers in the United States. We recently met our goal of 10,000 charger deployments 2 years ahead of schedule. More and more, we, our sister departments and bureaus, and our private partners are becoming the gas station of the future for the car capital of the world. In the area of air quality, we've partnered with other agencies and academic institutions to gain new insights. Through a grant from the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, more colloquially known as NASA, and in partnership with our local college, Cal State LA, we have embarked on an effort to mash ground-level sensor information with satellite imagery and sensors to use machine learning and gain an understanding and insight on the air quality in the LA basin. It's an initiative we called Predicting the Air We Breathe. Our hope is to provide the right information to decision makers and policymakers on land use, including green spaces, regulation, and other mitigation efforts. We're actually using existing sensors we have now in South LA and the Watts area, historically some of the LA's poorest and underserved communities. This is a win on many fronts, as we're leveraging assets that were previously unavailable to us, bringing on board other experts in the field, and ultimately having a cohort of other people willing to share their opinions and experiences working with the city. Now, the question I asked earlier clearly infers the pandemic, as it has drastically changed the landscape on which we all operate. Rather than force a change of direction, I'd say it forced a new urgency and required more thoughtfulness. Prior to the pandemic, cities were grappling with the issues of sustainability, resiliency, and the future of work. In our city, we released LA's Green New Deal, which aims to have zero waste, zero carbon electricity grid, zero emission transportation at work, and zero carbon buildings. In order to achieve these goals, new technologies and jobs would be very much required, in lieu with smart city goals as well. But once the pandemic hit, we had to approach these issues with new methods, as we couldn't rely on the things we did in the past in order to achieve success. Which is why last August, Mayor Garcetti signed Executive Order 29, the contactless and people-centered initiative. It ordered all city departments to do the following. First, bring their services online and in a contactless manner, including payment services through a unified, secure e-pay portal, direct assistance, public counters, permits, library services, applications, enrollments, signups, you name it, all those. Second, all new services must be approached with a mindset of digital first and use the new universal access portal. I'll get to that in a little bit. Third, stand up a task force to routinely monitor and adjust as needed. Now, this was made possible through the mayor's leadership and strategic investment of backbone infrastructure and capability over the last few years. And that has enabled the interoperability of these technologies and departments that usually had different building addresses. And just today, we are launching the next iteration of the initiative, the Angelino Account and Angelino Connect, a digital ID complemented with a debit card and banking function to allow single sign-on to all of our services and an ability for our residents to transact business. It has been a way for Los Angeles to give direct relief, as we had distributed $36 million to over 100,000 residents in the early days of the pandemic. It will continue to be a way for us to distribute aid, connect people to the right digital services, and enable a better environment to encourage businesses to work with the city. I usually pose this situation to explain the need and impact. Why force a single parent looking for help to come to different counters in order to find financial assistance, to get a library book, to pay their electricity or water bill? That's just shame on us. Now, just a couple of years ago, shared mobility devices like scooters and bikes and service apps like Waze, Uber, and Lyft were drastically changing traffic patterns and curb use. Sometimes they caused considerable angst, as some of the streets were facing new situations of drop-offs and pickups never seen before. And now, with the increased need of logistics and delivery services given COVID-19, there's another fast evolution of how we think about and use the roads and sidewalks. Our infrastructure, though, has remained static. We have painted curbs. We have printed placards. And at best, we must manually place signs, cones, or deploy traffic officers to change the use of the right-of-way, literally directing you left or right. So what if we can actually match our regulations and our infrastructure to appropriate use at the right time? That's why we're partnering with our Department of Transportation to code the curb. It is a new endeavor to develop a digital map and a new digital approach to managing the public right-of-way. We're starting by cataloging the different regulations and restrictions currently in place. We'll then layer on the analysis of traffic patterns using sensors and cameras to see what is actually happening on the ground over time and in real time. With those two pieces of information, we can get a better understanding of how best to manage the limited space available on the street and adjust accordingly. Right now, this is in its pilot phase, but we see great potential in tackling some of the biggest issues and concerns that our residents have. We are Los Angeles. We've been known for traffic. Now, all this access and ability is only really made possible if you have basic connectivity, or even understand what being online means. Los Angeles has pushed and led the nation to become one of America's first 5G cities in 2018, and as an urban center, has considerable cable and fiber infrastructure built out. But there still remains 1 in 10 Angelenos that live in households without internet subscriptions. This divide is widest when comparing affluent areas like the Palisades, which only has about 2% of Angelenos without connectivity, versus historic South LA that has 19% without connectivity, 1 in 5. Moreover, in recent surveys and studies, older Angelenos over 65 were the highest percentage of those that were disconnected. That's why it's imperative for cities to reach out to those that would be otherwise left behind. During the pandemic, I helped secure 18,000 Wi-Fi hotspots for kids that were homeless, in public housing, or in the foster system, in a program called the Angeleno Connectivity Trust. These kids, who are predominantly from minority communities, face the highest number of absences or drop-offs during the school year at the start of the pandemic. We continue to partner with the telecommunications industry, the organization Everyone On, and the California Emerging Technology Fund to share information of low-cost options through getconnectedlosangeles.lacity.org. To help open opportunities to our disconnected youth, we've invested $6 million in a program called Angeleno Core, a $1,000 per month part-time job and $1,000 scholarship opportunity for those between the ages of 18 through 24 to explore jobs in the fields like education and childcare. $1 million of this program is set aside for Future Core, which looks to expose more in the fields of STEM and STEAM. For our older Angelenos, our Department of Aging has secured a State of California grant to pilot a program to combat loneliness and the digital divide. 752 iPads will be distributed to seniors throughout the city, helping them engage with resources and social opportunities available online. The department will not only distribute the iPads, but also teach them how to use it by partnering with a nonprofit called Cyber Seniors, which connects student volunteers with seniors to provide technology support and training. So I ask again, did the goals change? In my view, the overarching goals are always the same. We care about building a sustainable and resilient city. We care about building inclusive communities that are happy and enjoy a higher quality of life. The impetus, however, is greater, and the methods have changed as a digital response is integral to recovery. We must not rush. We must consider people's situations or risk a wider range of information and ultimately economic gaps in our communities. Our services through our city, our consistency, and our push towards equity is what many will depend on. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this conversation and conference.
네, 고맙습니다. 네, 박수.
Yes, thank you very much. A big round of applause, please, for our first speaker. So we've just watched the first presentation video, which was on the case of LA by the Executive Director of the City of Los Angeles Public Works Bureau. And let us now move on to the Netherlands.
From the city of Almere, Mayor Frank Weerwind will be talking about open and innovative Almere Smart City strategy. Let's take a look at the screen.
My own city is Almere, a new town in Amsterdam and just 45 years old. It was created from scratch on reclaimed land from the sea and is now a vibrant city with over 215,000 inhabitants. It is a city without ancient history and traditions, but a young city with a strong pioneering spirit. There is space to experiment and to test innovative solutions in living labs. Our living lab approach has resulted in various circular and sustainable energy innovations in the city. For example, a smart thermal grid for the new Hortus neighborhood. Almere is an important city in the metropolitan region of Amsterdam, a region consisting of 32 municipalities with a population of 2.5 million inhabitants. An economically strong region in Europe with a high quality of life, an international hub with a huge amount of talent, knowledge, innovation, and businesses. The impact of COVID-19 on Almere has been widespread, both in negative and positive sense. It has impacted the environmental quality, with air quality being the most noticeable. For instance, ventilation in schools and sports facilities were not sufficient, and because more people were spending time outdoors, air pollution caused by traffic emission and heat pockets had a bigger effect on the well-being of our citizens. We've implemented a yearly control cycle on the air quality in schools and accelerated our effort to greening city logistics. For the long term, we've incorporating guidelines in urban planning for energy neutral building that will have a lasting effect on the environmental quality. The social economic impact has also been significant. COVID-19 has exposed all problems and inequalities in new light. Minorities and people at the bottom of the socio-economic spectrum in Almere have been hit disproportionately. They often suffer more from pre-existing conditions due to more exposure to risks, economic difficulties, and limited access to services. We suspended or lowered the rent for municipal real estate and brokered with commercial parties to suspend evictions and to provide more leniency in mortgage payments if necessary. We also had positive experiences of social innovation and collaboration with community-driven activities as food sharing and grocery delivery, and a large part of our vaccination program being operated by volunteers. The important takeaway here is that reducing inequalities is critical for enhancing coping and response capacities of cities. This should also be coupled with measures aimed at improving sense of community and of community-driven initiatives. Resilience comes from the bottom, not from the top. Communication plays a big part in this. With most work done and services delivered remotely, we had to change the way we communicate. Services side, we've become more data-driven in the field of crowd, traffic, and waste management. But we are also using data now to determine which people will be affected the most by the COVID-19 crisis, financially, to effectively target the support programs that we have in place. I touched on the subject briefly, but the way we manage and govern the city has also changed. Our ability to respond to a crisis on this scale has been limited by short-term single-pillar planning. A long-term vision and integrated urban governance are needed to enhance adaptive capacity. And if there's one thing that we have learned is that local leadership and community engagement are critical to address changes in society. A citizen-driven approach should always be central in any policy designed to create engagement. Another issue that we can clearly identify where COVID-19 had an impact is the city's transportation and urban design. People started making less use of public transport in favor of cars, bikes, and walking. While we like the latter, we prefer less cars and more use of efficient green public transport. This forces us to rethink the way we want to keep the city of Almere accessible now and in the future. In our urban planning, the shift to cycling and walking offers a unique opportunity to further promote active transportation. The demand of our citizens for outdoor exercise and recreation will prioritize the allocation of open space and green zones. Never waste a good crisis also applies for this pandemic, as it has provided us with opportunities that can be capitalized on by planners. We want to capitalize on this momentum and focus on the underlying transitions, sustainability, circularity, climate adaptation, that are necessary to create sustainable, livable, and inclusive cities. Smart solutions have contributed to developing more effective and efficient response and recovery measures. Remote working enabled us to stay productive and to deliver city services, and at the same time reducing human-to-human contact. Online shopping and data-driven logistics has largely kept the retail and food supply chain intact, and I think has made it even more mainstream and efficient. We've used the data-driven approach with real-time monitoring and big data analytics to formulate adaptive response measures. I'll give you one example. For several years, Almere has used an urban observatory for camera surveillance. In response to the COVID-19 crisis, the urban observatory capabilities were extended to collect and store real-time data on various metrics, including vehicle traffic, pedestrian movement, and air quality. The live data feeds of the platform was transformed into a dashboard that our city services can use to make data-driven and evidence-based adaptive decisions. For instance, traffic management is now connected to air quality, which we monitor through sensors and a satellite feed. When thresholds are breached, the traffic flow gets adjusted or rerouted to reduce emission. In the near future, we will also be able to show our citizens the effect cars have on the air quality in their direct environment to create awareness for green alternatives. Our goal is to create a smart city where people can live, work, and recreate easily and car-free. Innovative projects are not only conceived in the city at all. It is important that the partners in the city, and in a broader sense, residents and entrepreneurs, take the lead. It means that we are open and dependent on others, that flexibility is needed, and that not all of the options explored may lead to successful projects. This also means a different role for the government. We have to be upfront and active. Our role is to ask around, announce, stimulate, facilitate, support, and research. Properly facilitating and guiding this process to mobilize the innovative forces of our cities together with our residents, knowledge institutions, and the private sector. And as far as I am concerned, when collaborating together, we look behind the borders of the Netherlands. Now more than ever, Dutch smart city initiatives are more often than not the result of co-creation between the quadruple helix: public sector, private sector, academic institutions, and citizens. An important lesson learned is that we have to work together to make a difference. It is amazing how flexible people are and come up with creative approaches to cope with the challenges due to COVID-19. More specific in realizing the ambitions in smart city concepts. Only when we work together on all levels can we create sustainable, livable, and inclusive cities. And that is a lesson I want to share with you. Don't do it alone. To conclude, I would like to compliment you with your efforts in connecting cities in the field of smart cities. And please, feel free to take a closer look into the work of the metropolitan region Amsterdam and to learn, copy the elements that would benefit you, but also to bring your knowledge to us, for example, via our online platform, Amsterdam Smart City. That way, together we advance in digital transition and move forward to the digital, inclusive, and sustainable future of our cities. And of course, last but not least, I would like to invite you to come and visit the World Expo on Horticulture in 2022. Floriada World Expo 2022 is integrated in the urban development of an entire neighborhood based on the concept of sustainable smart cities. This urban development, Almere Hortus, is an important showcase of how smart city policies are applied and can be implemented in an integrated approach to address city challenges in the area of sustainability, circularity, and smart mobility. Come to visit so we can share our knowledge and learn together.
네, 박수.
Yes, a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We have just heard from Frank Weirwind, who is the mayor of Almere City Municipality. He talked about how we should make concerted efforts for promoting sustainability of our cities. Thank you very much for your presentation.
표 만나.
We will now move on to the third presentation. The third presentation would be on the future of Bhutan, the new smart city, and we will have Mayor Chang Dok-chun to give us the presentation. I would like to invite Mayor Chang on the stage. Please welcome him with a big hand.
네, 안녕하십니까?
Good day, everyone. I am Chang Dok-chun, Mayor of Bhutan City. It is a great pleasure to share with you the smart city vision of Bhutan at the World Smart City Expo. And it's a great pleasure to also engage in discussions with the prominent panelists. Data, network, and AI or DNA is the theme that I drew for my presentation. So let me talk about Bhutan's DNA. This is the order of my presentation. I would like to first talk about Bhutan's data, network, Bhutan's AI, and the cloud-based ITS and BIS program, as well as the Bhutan's Smart Specialized Service or the Smart City Challenge. First, on the value and vision of Bhutan's data. The vision of Bhutan's data is a data orchestra. It means that everything is integrated together. We have public data from public network services, and we have from the private sector private data that is being collected on their side. And we also have data from the citizens. By recovering their data sovereignty, citizens have their own My Data, which is a part of the data governance. And this will be brought together in a data lake and a data center. Bhutan City wants to develop an AI data center or AIDC, an R&D comprehensive data center, and the Daejangdong's AI data center will be focused on creating jobs, devising policies, introducing policies, and sophisticating businesses. So we believe that this will serve as a foundation for us to make all of this a reality. Next, talking about, let me move on to the recovery of data sovereignty of citizens. Citizens create data. They are the major agents of data. However, in many cases, they do not get the added value from this data. Communications, medical, and financial information from the citizens, which we call My Data, will be gathered at the data lake of Bhutan, and this will be meshed with private data and will be sold. And through a compensation scheme, the citizens will be able to recover their data sovereignty and also seek the value from this, which will make Bhutan a data-centered city. We have strategies and services that are being developed based on the data orchestra vision. The data, various data, and with the convergence of private data, we want to enhance the competitiveness of Bhutan City. So providing this program and offering services and by expanding and scaling services is what we want to do in the future. Particularly, we want to serve as a personal assistant to our citizens. In other words, a personal assistant services with customized information to the citizens will help provide a more inclusive society. And Bucheon's network is the next part of my presentation that I would like to talk about. Bucheon across the city in order to provide flexible services and introduce high tech. We have a future-oriented network environment of 5G, which is an SDN or a software-defined network. With an AI data center, we will be able to flexibly run and manage this, and of course, we will need the cloud environment to make all of this possible. And the Bucheon City also aspires to become an innovative transportation city. In other words, there is the traffic control system, emergency services, AI-based jackwalking prevention system, smart parking system, and AI-based emergency and contingency system, prediction and forecast system are some of the systems that we are already offering to our citizens. Across the city, data is being collected, and the significant data is being processed at data archives as well as libraries. And starting from next year, we're going to disclose and present the system that we have to the world. Let us now move on to Bucheon's AI. One of the advantages of Bucheon is that it has a highly dense, high quality CCTV data, video data, and such volume of data is unprecedented in the world. And based on this data, we can become an AI-based city. So we can understand the traffic of pedestrians as well as cars, to understand commercial zones, and not only that, autonomous driving is a value that we believe we can introduce to Busan, and a smart quarantine system and smart services for the citizens in the post-pandemic era is something that we will be able to offer to our citizens. And let me now move on to video and cultural contents. The pillar of the world's industry is moving from capital, technology, and labor to software contents. If we look at the contents, that eventually will become the future. That is the world that we are living in right now. In the case of Bucheon City, in terms of animations and cartoons, we have many types of cultural contents, and this is a great strength that the city holds. And in the Sangbong video contents district, we're going to create many different contents. And video contents will be the brand of Bucheon, and we're going to make this into digital data to create new jobs as well as new industries.
부천시는
Bhutan City, starting from 2020, has been establishing data sets for AI training. And so we have been developing the algorithm for transportation and dynamics. And Bhutan City has developed a self-learning software system, and this is to train automatically the AI algorithm, and this will help Bucheon City to emerge as a powerhouse of AI technology. One of the strengths of Bucheon City is the crime prevention and traffic, and so we will secure greater images related to the traffic information and crime prevention to create more value, and also cultural contents as well. Of course, for this, we will have to collect, process a massive amount of data, and for this, we will need a data center. Such a data center based on AI will play an important role within our city. Bucheon AIDC, the data center, will be further promoted in Bucheon. And first of all, in the first step, we will be establishing the basic plan for the data center, and the AIDC will be constructed in the general sports complex. In the second step, the City Integrated Center and the Sports Complex AIDC Center will be up and running. In the third stage, we will be establishing the Daejang AIDC, and also we will have a step-by-step operation of the center so that we can become a global network hub. Next I would like to talk about the bus information system and also the intelligent cloud-based system. And I will talk about how we are sharing what we have developed with the world and cities in Korea. Starting from 2015, we have been providing to Seosan Namwon and also to cities in countries such as Mongolia the bus information system that we have developed. This was made possible because of the cloud technology that we utilize. Next, I would like to talk about Bhutan's smart specialized services. Bhutan City, through its Smart City Challenge project, has been working with the PMs, the personal mobility tools, and we have been providing a platform for sharing these mobility tools. Not only that, we have a system to find kids that are lost and tackle many other social challenges. So we have various services provided through a single app, and this is provided based on a platform. And so the citizens can actually enjoy the benefits of Bhutan in their daily lives. Next, ensuring the basic rights of communication. Bhutan City, with regulatory exceptions, have been targeting the public space of which accounts for 26.48% of land area of Bhutan to provide free Wi-Fi services. And so this will help bridge the digital divide or the digital gap. And number two, this is ensuring the basic right to health. Our city has many different images, and AI is applied to that so that we can swiftly identify the contagious diseases and prevent the spread of these diseases and identifies the risks. And also through the system, based on the systems that we have, we will be working with the Center for Disease Control. If I may make one more point, in epidemiological investigations of the confirmed cases, it is very important to quickly identify the movement routes of the confirmed people. And this will help prevent the spread of COVID-19 in our society. And Korea is well known for its quarantine efforts. It is known as K-quarantine. We have a very advanced system, and there are four methods that we use. There is a testimony of the people, tracking down the card usage information, the CCTV information, and a location-based information. In order to ensure the basic rights to health, what Bhutan City is doing is that we are utilizing the CCTV and we are analyzing it based on AI technology. By doing so, we can actually analyze massive amount of data within a short period of time, and this actually helps reduce the time required for analyzing the data. And so it actually takes a long time to look at the video of that confirmed person. But if we utilize AI technology, we can accelerate the speed by 50 folds, and so we can more easily identify the people that that person has been in contact with. And so this will help prevent the spread of contagious diseases. Next, ensuring the basic right to safety. Along with the basic rights to health, we will be utilizing the video images and also the AI technology to identify the movement of the criminals. And in August already, we have established an integrated control tower so that we can link the different information channels to ensure swift response for the security and the safety of the people of Bhutan. And we have a AI system that links our city with the police force to make Bhutan City an even safer place to live in. Bhutan City provides all services with the city through a single platform. We have rolled out an all-in-one service. Actually, this app is currently being developed, and we will continue to integrate more services into the single platform. The citizens are developing Bhutan City, and they are enjoying the benefits of Bhutan City. To further promote this, we have created a center to ensure that the people can enjoy the benefits together. We heard from the person representing LA about its effort, the city of LA's efforts to shorten or bridge the digital divide. He talked about how some people are excluded from enjoying the benefits of digital technology. In Bhutan, we focus on the elderly in particular because they have difficulty in utilizing smartphones and applications. And so we want to target them and provide them with training and education. And that is actually one of the roles that the Danurim Center will take on. A lot of people have actually welcomed this type of service provided at the center, and we will be further expanding the center to 13 locations so that we can more swiftly implement innovative technologies and services so that the city of Bhutan can ensure a better quality of life to the people within our city. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. We have just heard from the mayor of Bhutan City and heard about the plans for building smart cities and also the current status of Bhutan City. We have heard from Mayor Jang Deok-chun. Thank you very much. And so we have heard the 4 presentations prepared for the Smart City Conference. We will have a short 5-minute break, which will be followed by a panel discussion. Right now, it is 1:45, so we will reconvene after 5 minutes at 1:50. I will meet you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
네, 이제 스마트 시티
So let us now begin the panel discussion of the Smart City Conference. First, I would like to invite the panelists who will participate in the discussion. And because of the quarantine measures applied here today, I would like you to just acknowledge the crowd while you are seated. The moderator of the session is Chairman Kim Gap-sung of the Smart City Special Committee. Thank you very much for joining us. We are joined by 4 panelists. We just heard from him. Mayor Jang Deok-chun of Bhutan City is participating as a panel discussant. Next, Professor Lee Young-sung of Seoul National University. Welcome. And next, Professor Lee Sang-hoon of Korea University. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Professor Yoon Jung of Yonsei University. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin the panel discussion, we asked students their views on smart cities. So we prepared a video of the interview that was conducted. Let's take a look. Do you know about the policies related to smart city that is implemented at the national level or at the local governments? Yes. Actually, I know about the Smart City Challenge initiated by MOLIT. Yonsei University is participating. It's about personal mobility, and also I understand it tries to promote the local commercial districts. What kind of fields has to be promoted in smart cities? I think that welfare for the elderly, because we're experiencing fast aging in our society. So how can we resolve the issue of aging utilizing smart city technology, I think, is needed. Right now, well, it has been about 1.5 years since we have experienced COVID-19, and I think that that is not a short period of time. During that period, already a lot of people have been accustomed to non-face-to-face activities. So even after COVID-19 is over, people will now go back to life as it was before. People will continue to work at home. They will continue to engage in non-face-to-face exchanges. So what are the best points about working online or studying online? Well, because I'm a student, I enjoyed studying at home, listening to the courses at home, online, and also shopping. Well, I was able to order goods at home, and also I was able to order food and gourmets at home. So what is your thoughts on personal information protection and privacy protection? I think that privacy protection is like two sides of a sword. If we overly try to protect privacy, then there will be too many regulations generated, and so this will actually hurt the utilization of data. But if we loosen up privacy regulation, then this can actually hurt the privacy security. Well, I utilize Enable Portal, and I've received a message that someone has tried to log in Ukraine. So I think that when it comes to smart city, we have to think more about how we can protect the privacy of people and also ensure security. And we need a process to ensure that.
Are you willing to take part in the Smart City Living Lab? Yes, I do. And I am actually a part of the Living Lab right now as we speak. Yonsei University in Molit has a Smart Campus Challenge program, and I am a member of this challenge. And at the Living Lab, we look into what kinds of cases are safer, and in order to facilitate a specific commercial area, we talk about what kinds of ideas will help that happen. What are the concerns surrounding the smart city? I believe that right now, Korea's smart city is only focused on the technology. In actuality, smart city at the end of the day is a city, so it should be human-centered. However, right now, we're too much engrossed in the technological aspect of the city. So it's important to make sure that all citizens enjoy these technologies. But then again, there are people that will be losing their jobs due to the technology. But I think that we need more consideration of such group. And I'm currently concerned about the digital divide. Because there are the age, there are those that are not very used to using digital devices, but we do see this digital gap, and with COVID, it's exacerbating. Therefore, in the future, it's important to make sure that we close this digital gap.
네, 우리 청년
Yes, thank you very much. We just heard the thoughts related to smart cities of the youth in our society. We will enter into probably an era of with corona, living with the COVID-19 virus. So we are expecting a transformation soon, and I think that I hope that this will prove to be a good opportunity to think about the changes in our cities through this session. So we will begin the panel discussion after post-COVID-19, the role of smart cities and future response strategies. I would like to hand over the microphone to the moderator.
Hello, everyone. I am Kim Gak-sung of Yonsei University. It's an honor to moderate this session. And congratulations to the 5th World Smart City Expo. The topic of today's panel discussion is, of course, the city. We need to understand what's in store for us post-pandemic, and we would like to talk about some of the challenges that were raised by the students in the interview video. We heard from the case of LA and I'm mayor of the Netherlands and Bhutan City. We all heard from our speakers, and I want to understand the panelists' view on the presentations, and then we will move on to some specific questions. So first, Professor Yu, Professor Lee, and Professor Lee, would you like to compare the three cities and give us your impression on the presentations, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I thought I would go last, but I have to speak first. This was unexpected. Well, I was listening to the cases that were introduced, and well, I think that the conceptions that we have about smart cities or the directions that we have for smart cities, I thought that they were quite in line with what is ongoing in other foreign cities as well. And the LA case was quite impressive. The former vice mayor of LA, Mr. Miguel Sangalang, he mentioned something very impressive. Well, the students said that being overly focused on technology can be a problem. He said that the city should be human-centered. The cities are about people, not technology, that was mentioned. So, and also, the cities have to be more inclusive, including the minorities. So that should be the direction for the new city. So going towards a more inclusive cities is our direction. But in that kind of cities, we need more technology and more jobs. And I actually wrote something down. Now, smart cities, well, there are two things. First of all, there has to be problem solving, and you have to actually utilize the opportunities. You have to continuously work on the problems, but if you do so, then you might lose sight of the upcoming opportunities. Right now, we're trying to focus on the single individual services, but now I think that smart cities are somewhat advanced, and so we have to focus on advancing the industries and focus on the opportunities, for example, the opportunities for job creation. And I think that because of COVID-19, this has been more accelerated. And the former vice mayor exactly pinpointed this job creation in the new cities. I think that this can provide us a momentum for going on to the next stage. And he talked about some of the case studies. So that was the most impressive part of the presentation. Thank you.
황원 교수님.
Next, Professor Lee Sang-hoon. With regard to the three presentations and the three cities, it got me wondering, and I particularly thought that Korea's smart city has a higher sophisticated level, but there is a caveat here. Almere and, well, I'm not confining my comments to LA and Almere, but it was Barcelona in November of 2018 at the Smart City Expo. I had the chance to visit the City Hall of Barcelona, and the Smart City Director gave us a presentation. And we also were able to tour the Pobleo district, very well known as a pilot district of the smart city. And he was so proud of the smart street lighting, but this is not something that's sophisticated, but they seem to be so proud of their smart street city lighting program. But I looked into the details, and I was able to see that it deserved respect, because when it comes to the challenges and the issues, and afterwards then putting together the action plan, set the budget, put together the project plan, monitor, and at the end of the program, post monitoring, all did take place. And what happened was stakeholders were involved every step of the way in a timely fashion. We had the private sector, and we had the government, the civil groups, the civil society, and citizens. They first looked into identifying the challenges, they brainstormed on the solutions, and in the process, they were involved. And also in the monitoring phase, we had the stakeholders. So you can see that it was a pilot, but it actually had high satisfaction rates, and they decided to expand this across Barcelona. So that was 2018. And I think that this is one form of a sustainable policy-making process. If we look at the technological prowess, we can see that Korea, compared to any other city, tops the list. But can I add just one more? Now, to my comment, Bhutan had wonderful programs in place, but I particularly, the part about data sovereignty resonates with me because it's a very good attempt and a meaningful attempt. Have you ever heard of EU's Digital Market Act, or the Online Platform Fair Trade Act? Have you ever heard of this act? Or the in-app payments? I'm pretty sure you heard of that, the in-app payment. With regard to the in-app payments, the ICT Business Act, the amendment to this act passed the National Assembly. This means that Google or Apple or these large platform companies have app stores, and they have many applications, contents providers, and businesses on their platform, and it's being downloaded from their platform. And with regard to the costs, through their settlement or payment process, they take 30% split of the revenue. It first started off in Europe, where Apple I'm sure you all know Spotify, the app. In Korea, there are many users. And Spotify would have their content on Apple's platform. And for those that download Spotify contents, 30% of the cost share Apple would be taking. And therefore, Spotify filed a lawsuit in the EU. So there's this Digital Market Act. That's a bill right now. And it involves 10 platform providers. We call them the gatekeepers. They are the significant sized gatekeepers or platform providers, and GAFA is included here: Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook, plus a handful or a total of six. In other words, they are companies with more than a revenue of 6.5 billion and a market valuation of 65 billion euros. So if they do not share information, data, then they would be restricted or may be fined at a maximum of 10% of their global revenue. So last year, this draft was circulated, and it's highly likely to become a act within this year. And Korea's ICT Act amendments is in the same vein, which is about prohibiting in-app payments. So in terms of data sovereignty, I think that it's quite meaningful, because if data providers or if platform providers take everything, then the winner takes all when it comes to data revenue from data. But data uh, is generated by citizens, private sector, and everybody needs to enjoy this data. But if we see specific platform providers dominating this data, this is not the right way to go. They are not labor oriented. Once you do have the platform, then well, that's basically it. You don't need additional labor input. But still, they can get so much revenue out of this platform business. So I hope that there are more discussions on this, and in that aspect, prohibiting in-app payments and the amendments accordingly, I think, is a meaningful step. So that's basically it for my first take. Yes, there will be second round. So let's moving on, Professor Lee. So yes, I understand this is the first round.
Well, we listened to the presentations and we took a look at the video. And while during the break, I was able to speak with the panelists, including Professor Kim Gap-sung. Now, when compared to other countries, I think that overall, well, I think that the case of Bucheon City was the best. Not only Bucheon City, but I think that compared to any other country, Republic of Korea stands tall. It has advanced significantly. I entered into grad school in the 1990s, and back then, Korea was still lacking being something. And so we were still learning from other countries. And after I became a professor, whenever we tried to research something, we would also study the cases of foreign countries. But nowadays, I think that when we conduct many studies or researches, rather than trying to learn from the foreign cases, we're referencing the foreign cases. And I came to the realization once again that overall, we are not lagging behind. We are not trying to learn because we lag behind, but overall, we are keeping a good score. But we still want to see if there is some insight that we can gain. So, having said that, if we go to the United States, not only smart cities, but other cities in general, I think that there are these general issues or the general points that are really different from what we can find here in Korea. And it's linked with the philosophy as well. Why this is important when it comes to smart cities is that, well, I think Bucheon City mentioned something very valuable related to data. It's basically big data. Big data, in order for it to play a significant role, you need to meet certain conditions. First of all, there has to be in-depth data. So, and also there has to be some data barriers, and there has to be diverse data. And also there has to be the economy of scale. But in order to have economy of scale, there has to be variance and there has to be in-depth data. So I think that in terms of the variance and in-depthness, that might be a little bit lagging behind, but we have variety in terms of the different fields. For example, if you look at the United States, Columbus City of Ohio won a challenge. And Ohio, Columbus City had presented a philosophy for smart cities. And what that was that despite the fact that the United States is a superpower, in Columbus City of Ohio, still there are cases where pregnant women, when they're giving birth, dies, and that rate actually is the highest in the United States. So the pregnant women who lose their lives during labor, a lot of them were in the low income bracket. And these people, they don't have access to cars. They don't know how to utilize services such as Uber. And so, in order to provide adequate mobility services, autonomous driving should be provided utilizing voice services. And so, the mobility side was implemented in Columbus City's approach, and also how technology will be applied to help these vulnerable people. For example, the pregnant women who dies during labor. Well, Columbus City had this integrated package to look at not only the technology, but how the technology can be applied to benefit the people, including the vulnerable people. And I think that that kind of approach and philosophy was reflected in the case of LA. So in Korea, we have a good system. But once again, going back to Columbus City, the side effects and the accidents of births. Well, in the case of Columbus City, there was great variance and in-depthness in terms of the data that was utilized. But Korea does not have that level of in-depthness or variance when it comes to data. Why do we need this? We really have to think hard about this. Why do we need the in-depthness and the variance of data? Now, each city has to enhance the variance level and also have to meet the economy of scale. I think that if we have a new administration coming in, and I will talk about this in the second round. I'm sure that we'll talk about this, but I think that we have to focus on this in the new policies that will be implemented in the new administration. Yes, thank you very much. So I looked at the three cities and I could find that the foreign cities were focusing on certain services and talked about the target goals, whereas the Korean cities, I think that it was like a full package with various elements. So services of all different fields have to be there in order to make that city a complete smart city. That's what I felt. And as it was mentioned by Professor Lee Sang-hoon, well, he talked about the process, how the cities will overcome the challenges. He mentioned that you really have to communicate with the citizens in order to find the solution. But the thing is that communication part is a little bit weak here in Korea. And so I think that having said that, well, in the past, we pursued a ubiquitous city for the past 10 years. And in the new government, the Moon Jae-in administration, we have selected smart city as a national agenda and have been making many investments. And if you look at the cities that have been developed under this initiative, I think that one of the representative cases would be Bhutan City. The large cities, such as Seoul City, has a lot of budget. There's a lot of people that can work on these projects. But Bhutan City, I think the reason that it was able to rise as one of the representative cases of smart cities is because of the leadership of Mayor Jang Duk-cheon. So I would like to ask you, what do you think has made Bhutan City advance into a smart city, as you have mentioned? And also, you touched upon the fact that you are trying to communicate with the people and also the collaboration with the private sector, but can you give us more details?
네, 우리 김갑선 교수님 말씀.
As Professor Kim Gak-sung has mentioned, the position of the mayor or the leadership of the mayor is important, as well as the capabilities of the officers and staff. In terms of the technology and system, there is a lot going on right now. And we did see some challenges when we wanted to introduce these technologies. We have to persuade the city council, convince the citizens, and there may be conflicts amongst areas that have this introduced and not. But the dream that I have is about digital crush. So in politics, they say that direct democracy can be on the rise by using digital technology. And we believe that that may be possible, and we want to be one of the first ones to achieve that. Other professors mentioned the importance of an inclusive society, and I think that it's all in the same vein, not only in the technology, but I think that it's important to have citizens be involved from the very beginning to voice their needs and to try this out, simulate this out in the living labs. And we were able to reduce the resistance and conflicts in the process. This comes from direct experience, and we know that citizens' participation is pivotal. And if I may just add a couple of more comments, I personally am quite optimistic about the fourth industrial revolution. Some say that it may take away jobs, but I think it's about adaptation. So Bhutan Smart City program, or this policy, is that's why I placed this at the center, and we're putting in a lot of budget into this program. And what we want to do is be at the forefront to actually go through the trials and errors and have others learn from our example, and maybe we can make this into a business. And I personally researched this topic in depth. In the fourth industrial revolution, AI is important, so I do my own study. I speak with the experts, and it's everybody. The fact that I really enjoy these conversations is because they say that we have all the technology. It's about whether we have the right ideas to apply the technology. And of course, we have to think about budgetary constraints and about any concerns that the citizens have, and to also make sure that they are on board. As you've mentioned, it's about inclusiveness. And this is as important as the financial resources as well as technology. So we will continue on to pursue this to an inclusive society. So the next question would be on COVID-19. From the end of 2017, we've announced the national agenda on the smart city. And some of the core aspects had to do with remote services, including that in the medical sector and the educational sector. But for this to be realized, we need to ease regulations. But due to COVID-19, some of the easing was forced because it was inevitable. So I think that we're seeing a faster pace of change. So then, why don't we compare pre and post COVID? There were many agenda items on the table of the government. So, what should we concentrate on? How should we modify some of the objectives or strategies? So, let me now start off with Professor Lee Young-sung.
어차피 이제
Yes. Well, Bhutan City was the best among the presentations, so I would like to focus my attention on Bhutan as we talk about this. Well, there are many challenges that cities are faced with, so I will not talk about all of them. But from the central government perspective, I think that there is a division of labor or division of roles that have to be focused on. Now, when it comes to data, at the local government level, it's good to collect the data, and also utilizing the data should also be done at the local government level. But when it comes to the management and the archiving of the data, I'm not sure whether the local governments have competitiveness, because big data has to be truly big data in order for it to be effective. And as it was mentioned, fundamentally, the data has to have indefiniteness and variance. In the case of Bucheon City, the idea is great, but there is, I think, a limitation fundamentally. So I think that there are separate platforms for each city, but I think that just like DoD of the United States made a massive cloud. When it comes to data in Korea, also, I think that basically we need a large national cloud, and within the national cloud, we need to have all of the data there. And there should be disclosure of the data, and also there has to be a link with portals such as Kakao and Naver, and there has to be self-training, for example, automated training. For example, Tesla's AIDA, well, there is a border, a computer that is known as border, and also autonomous driving is being tested utilizing that. Within Korea, in order to deal with the city challenges, we have to gather and collect the data, and then we have to do simulations to make predictions and find out the errors and analyze. But with this individual silo-like platforms, we cannot achieve that goal. So we need a nationwide cloud, and we need a more systematic approach in an integrated manner. And once again, we have to look at the strengths of the country. 3 years ago, I was able to visit Pittsburgh, and I was able to meet with the mayor of Pittsburgh, and he told me that the robo-taxi commercialized by Uber is being operated in Pittsburgh. There are 200 of them. It's the first time that the Uber taxi was launched in Pittsburgh. And I asked, why Pittsburgh? Like I said, it's because of the data in-depthness and also the variance. Because the roads there's a lot of curvy roads, winding roads. There are 4 distinct seasons, and there are variants among the different neighborhoods. And when I ask the big data experts, they say that there is a lot of in-depthness in the data because of the characteristics of Korea. And also, within the limited land area, we can see that there are distinct unique features for each district or neighborhood. So you can see that by location, there are unique characteristics, and each city also has unique characteristics. So I think that within the data cloud run by the government, the national cloud, I think that we can actually train the data, or utilize the data for training. And when we have that kind of approach, I think that we can really have the basic structure for dealing with the city challenges. Now, thank you very much. The Fourth Industrial Revolution Committee is working on the data governance of the nation. And we are actually working on what you mentioned, and we already announced some relevant aspects of that.
Yes, I would like to now take a different angle. Because of COVID-19, we saw the rise of the so-called untact culture, as we put it. Meetings, conferences, and even right now, this is a hybrid format of both online and offline. Everything is now done in a non-contact way. But have you ever thought of what would happen after we overcome COVID? There is that urge to meet face to face. And if you look at the guidelines by the government, it says that depending on the vaccinations, you can gather by 6, then 4 if you're 2 weeks after your second vaccination. So what I'm trying to say here is the smart city focuses on the digital environment or the digital space. But what's even more important, or as important, is the physical space of the smart city. If we are trapped in digital space, we may be seeing so-called hermits. We may be seeing those that would be truly individualistic, no more personal connection, no communication. We may be seeing an isolated human being. And if we want to avoid all that, we have to meet one another. So the physical space or the space of the city needs to induce communication, participation, and gathering. It's important to make sure that there are many contacts that can be forged in the city environment. You're all smart city experts, so I'm sure that you know where what I'm getting at. So think about the smart city value chain. What comes first to mind? We have the device provider, network provider, platform provider, and we have the end users, and we have by sector, energy, environment, mobility, and what else? We have the built environment, convenience services. So we have the relevant technologies and those that provide the technologies with their solutions, and they're engaging in their business. So this is the value chain, the typical value chain of the smart city. But my value chain in my head would add something to this. Under the end user, uh, I think that there is another sector of engineering, design, construction, financing, engineering. In other words, the back office layers also exist, which creates the backbone. This wasn't from MOLIT, but there is the Smart City Alliance with more than 500 companies joining this alliance. And if you look at the companies that are members, we have those in property development, construction, and we also see financial companies. So if we look at the Smart City Act of Korea, and if you refer to the definition of the smart city, it talks about the physical space as well as the physical infrastructure, and it talks about technology and construction. So, in other words, it does not disregard the physical space. However, smart city challenge programs and all of these programs are too much skewed towards IT. For the city to be efficient and to be more effective, we need to understand that the physical environment and the digital environment needs to be in balance. Therefore, I hope that smart city programs will also tune into this aspect. In 2018, a smart city type city regeneration program was launched with 7 municipalities receiving a budget from the central government. However, it became obsolete all of a sudden. Smart city is driven by MOLIT and talking about and it may also be about urban regeneration. But as mentioned by Professor Yu, we also need to create jobs. So when we think about the smart city policy, maybe we need to change or pivot. Now, the ultimate goal may be decided by the municipality, but as a national agenda, we need to have an overall blueprint or a different type of blueprint to cater to all of these needs. Professor Yu?
저도
The two professors who spoke before me spoke something in line with what I will talk about as well. Now, Robert Rice, I think that he was the Secretary of Labor during the Clinton administration. And I remember he wrote a commentary saying that with the untaxed society, there are now four classes in society. The first and second class, they survived, and the first class of society are the ones who can work via Zoom or online conference, and still they can continue to maintain their jobs. So this first class, they survive. The second class are the essential labor workers working in the logistics centers or the nurses, those who have to really be part of the operations. These survived as well. But the third and the fourth classes, the other people, they actually are declining in our society. And that was a point made by this former Secretary of Labor. I think that throughout our society, of course, we're going towards a more inclusive society, and COVID-19 has accelerated this trend. But as it was mentioned by the two professors, we are absorbing huge amounts of data. But at the same time, the smart cities that are utilizing such data, it has to actually contribute to promoting and developing the society and creating jobs. So how can the cities do that? I thought about that. And I think that we are actually trying to find ways to have cities contribute to that. For example, the assets that we have and the capabilities that we have, how can we utilize this to further upgrade them? And I think that the first thing is the data cluster, IDC, with the data clusters, 5G and big data, AI, real estate and logistics and construction, and the related startups, a lot of the different entities. Well, of course, a massive budget is required, but they can actually play a role, and a foundation can be built to come up with the jobs. And I think that this is something that should be initiated by the government, because a single company cannot do this alone. So having said that, I think that Molit, up till now, it made a data hub, but now the data hub has to be put into a vessel. I did research on the data hub with MSITC a couple of years ago, but we have to think about how we can link this with the other aspects. And in 2023, when the data hub is finished, I think that we will be seeing more of this. But right now, there are many initiatives being pursued, and we really have to think about how we can not only advance and develop the cities, but also how we can develop and advance the industries as well. Well, if we look into this, of course, I play a role of advisor as well, but there is a challenge that we have to tackle. As it was mentioned by Professor Kim Gap-sung, there are two things that we have to focus on. First of all, the data cluster, of course, is gathering data, but how can we really utilize this to enlarge the pie and have it work for our city, considering the unique characteristics of our city? And also, at the same time, we need the capacity or the highly talented people. But the local governments, there has to be the capacity to lead the way. But in order to acquire that kind of capacity, we need time and we need effort. So we need the talents, and also the local governments have to make efforts, and the private sector has to jump in as well. So overall, I think that we have to smoothly go towards this direction. And that is how we can go towards the next version of Smart City, which is the digital twin. So it's all about actually the data. You have to run the data. In order for that, you have to put the data in a vessel. You have to be able to actually have the standards and utilize the metadata. And I think that we need time. We need a couple of years to do that. And I think we are seeing this happening in some of the cities, for example, Incheon City, but we have to spread this to the other local governments. And we also have to come up with strategies to promote the industries and the businesses and create jobs at the same time. And also, we need data governance, not only in rhetoric, but actual pragmatic data governance. But in order to do that, what we have to do is we shouldn't just provide the service to the end users. It's not just about the smart crossroads or smart street lights. In the past, we applied the technologies to the services, but actually we need something integrated. For example, we need a data hub or a data twin or a data cluster. So we're going in this direction, but we need to make this more specified. And also, when you come up with the strategies, you have to come up with the reference models. And when you do so, I think that we will be able to go to the next stage of smart cities. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Now, I think that you emphasize the role of the government a lot. I am involved in various policies as advisor, but I think that the emphasis is changing as the time goes by. For example, depending on the national task designated by the administration, something is emphasized, but as the government changes, then the focus changes as well. For example, what was regarded important in the past will become useless with a new government. When we think about the smart cities, I think that the local municipal governments, the local government's role will be very important. And if you look at what the speakers talked about, they really showed the importance of leadership in the cities. But at the same time, we need the support from the government, and also the central government has to ease regulations as well. So, Mayor Chang, I want to ask you, what were some of the challenges that you experienced, and what do you think needs to be improved for your city to further advance?
네, 방금 전에 말씀하신 것처럼
As was mentioned, regulation is important. We have a parking robot at our booth, and if we did not have the regulatory sandbox, I believe that this parking robot would not have come to fruition. There were some trivial issues, one being car insurance, because if the person does not drive, then it cannot be covered by insurance. So I don't know what they're going to do with automotive driving, but we tried to find a way out of this, and I went out trying to persuade the relevant authorities on this to make this happen. So we think, well, I think that we do need some maybe professional treatment in the regulations when it comes to these new technologies. And we also have data security and privacy issues. Um, and it, I believe that it would be beneficial and quite useful to have swiftly some guidelines in place by the government. Of course, you need ample time to listen to the experts, but it would be great if we can have these guidelines as quickly as possible. We had the AI tracking system for the epidemiological investigation, and some in the media said that this was like the CCTV network of China. However, there is no identifiers here. The information was all masked. However, it took months through various government committees, I think 6 months, to solve this very trivial issue because it's all encrypted and it's all masked. But nevertheless, it took such a long time. And I think that if these regulatory hurdles are resolved as quickly as possible, to have the right guidelines in place to ease regulations would be key in driving the future. It's not easy to deregulate. Even if we do change the law, there are also the ordinances, the implementation guidelines that also have to be changed accordingly, which takes a lot of time. And I think that's why the regulatory sandbox can come in handy, and we may have to work on this to find ways to ease regulations for these programs to be realized. And I would like to ask our professors, what do you think the central government should do for the local government? There are many programs already in place, but it's true that it may be a bit single faceted, so maybe we need to bring this all together. And we probably need some models for predictability's sake. So, what do you think? You've probably looked into overseas cases. So, considering all that, what kind of programs should the central government offer to the local government? Professor Yeong Sung said that you think that Korea is the best here, but because this is an international conference, I think that it would be good if you'd be sharing your ideas on what we can do so that we can all learn a lesson. So, what should we do better, and what should we do more as central government? It,
Well, I think that if you not only smart cities, but in the process of industrialization, I think that Korea is very good at taking preemptive measures. We are advanced than any other country when it comes to preemptive efforts. Now, I was able to visit. Well, I was provided consulting services for an industrial complex in Vietnam. And when it comes to semiconductors and automobiles, Vietnam was very hesitant to uh, dive into the sector because there's a long history already and the sector is already advanced. Now, but actually, Korea in 1985, it entered into the semiconductor market. It was very preemptive, and it's the same for smart city as well. Now, I think that are a lot of things that the central government can do, but what is unfortunate in my view is that, and I think that there has to be more talk with the local government as well. But there's a budget issue. The central government, I think, has to provide a better guidance to the local governments. And because there are many people in the local government who are doing a great job, and with closer consultation, I think that even greater results can come out. And also, for example, the reduction of costs and expenses. There's a lot of talk about that, and there's a lot of demand for that at the same time. And also from the Ministry of Finance and Planning. Well, I think that this minister also requires the reduction of expenses at the same time. Now, and the use of electricity is, well, you probably know this, but there's data about how you can do or implement some kind of measure to reduce the use of electricity. And of course, this is good for the citizens because we can reduce taxes for them. And Smart Palm also well, the water usage amount can be adjusted, and these types of programs, I think, have to be further developed and promoted to the local governments, and guidance should be provided to the local governments about these programs. And if so, then the people will be able to better understand what smart city is about and participate more actively. People don't really participate in the living labs. We need the citizens' participation, but they really don't. So I think that we need to actually stimulate the people and induce them to participate, but we really have to show them what are the true benefits for them. The data and the national cloud, we're trying to utilize the data, but if we can show the benefits to the people, then I think that we can further promote their participation, and we can actually accelerate the way towards carbon neutrality. We can enjoy greater results. Yes, thank you very much. Professor Yoon Jung, you kept on talking about linking with job creation. When Smart City was elected as a national agenda, well, it was because we're now in the era of fourth industrial revolution, and we wanted to think about how we can utilize the advanced technologies, and at the same time, how can we apply the technologies for the people? And this was for creating jobs as well. But specifically, why do you think we haven't been able to do that? Well, I was curious about that as well. And I'm a member of this committee for smart cities, but actually there's a presidential committee for job creation, and I was really curious about what will happen to us when there is a digital transformation. What will happen to the jobs? And Thomas Freed, well, he said that if elementary school student studies, that elementary school student, when he becomes an adult, about 65% of the jobs that exist today will disappear when he becomes an adult and enters the job market. So then, up till now, we have been accustomed to certain types of jobs. But let's say that I'm in finance, but all of a sudden I cannot do algorithm development and coding. Of course, new jobs can be created, and that's great, but we have to be able to have people, those who have to maintain a job for 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years, be able to migrate to another job to prepare them. And I think that the government has to provide guidance. So I did some searching, and there was some research on this topic. And a year ago, I think that a similar issue was raised, and so there has been some studies about this. And I think that smart cities can provide a glimpse of hope or potential in this direction. We can, of course, enhance the living standards and the quality of life for the people, but at the same time, I think that since we are on the topic of promoting the inclusiveness of societies, we have to get rid of inequality in order to become an inclusive society. So equality means better welfare. And for that, we need the jobs. And how can we create the jobs? The jobs should come out of cities. So then, how can we create the jobs in cities? Well, right now we're talking about the integrated platforms and the smart crosswalks, etc. But I think that everything is about creativity and innovation. I think that when it comes to innovation, the government's doing a great job. Efficiency level went up, and we came up with the integrated platforms under this government, and there was a lot of certifications, and overall the cities have been upgraded and they have been innovated. So innovation, we're on a good track, but we have to go to the next step. And what is that? That is the stage of creativity. So in order to reach that stage of creativity, we need the ideas, and the ideas comes from the people, the citizens and the private sector. We have to have smart people, and also it has to come from the businesses, the corporations. For example, I'm a member of the Regulatory Sandbox Committee, but the industry interested parties or the stakeholders, they have to participate in the process of coming up with the regulatory sandbox. And at the same time, the cities, well, it's not just about coming up with a certain service for the smart cities, but we really have to have a broader perspective when we think about the smart cities. Mobility. Well, in the future, by 2030, Volvo says that it will only produce electric cars. So mobility equals EVs. And what does that mean? energy is important, and then semiconductor and climate and data, everything is linked together. That is a flow, that is a trend. And so when we think about smart cities, we have to think about this in this light. And so how we can create jobs and upgrade the cities and going towards an inclusive society, we have to come up with the specific initiatives. We have to make efforts to come up with these specific initiatives. But for that, we need the creativity, and for that, we need the participation of the people. Yes, thank you very much. Yes. I fully agree with what Professor Yoon Jung just said. But if you say that, well, in order to achieve what you said, well, we have to focus on a lot of elements. Whereas right now, I think that there is a more focus on technology. But in 2018, when we first began the construction companies, well, they said that they are not involved or relevant to smart cities. Smart cities were viewed to be something about smart street lights, for example. So we have to really broaden the perspective that people have about smart cities. Professor Lee Sang-hoon.
이 스마트시티 얼라이
I do know that you are involved in the Smart City Alliance, and we need a startup ecosystem, and we need jobs, and will we see more creativity in this sector? But could you maybe give us some information on why we weren't able to make much progress here, and how can we improve the situation? I want to. I wonder, I mean, panelists, were they aware of the questions? Because they're really great speakers. I was, I was trying to answer the questions, but it seems quite challenging. But obviously, the other speakers are they're excellent speakers. But at any rate, going back to the question, I mentioned that it's important to make sure that we have an understanding on the physical space, and we're seeing more people focusing on this concept. We had a symposium yesterday, the Smart Top Symposium, and Professor Moreno of Paris, of the University of Sorbonne, talked about the 15-minute neighborhood in his presentation yesterday. And we also heard from the professor from the University of Melbourne on the 20-minute neighborhood. But if you look into Professor Moreno's presentation, he seems to have a very strong theoretical background. And this 15-minute neighborhood was put in place as a policy starting from 2018. And the 15-minute neighborhood was all about sustainability. And it was about sharing resources amongst the citizens in the city. So how can it be shared? Well, it should be based on proximity to make sure that within the 15-minute neighborhood that the resources should all be shared. Then the living patterns of the citizens will naturally change. And you talked about the four axes. One was the ecological effect and proximity and social cohesion or solidarity and participation. So you talked about the four axes, and that under utilizing these pillars, this 15-minute neighborhood can work. But here at the center, it's all about physical space, because in the past, the boundaries of the city was quite wide and vast. And because of that, it's very difficult to reach that place. So that's why we talked about finding a way to contact or connect remotely. But now, if it's a 15-minute neighborhood, it means that it can be more effective, more lively, with more interactions in a desirable fashion. So that was the point of his presentation. But there's also a concept, the innovation district, that was brought in before the 15-minute neighborhood concept, and it was in Boston next to MIT. It was early 2000 when this concept was introduced. Even way before, they thought that for industrial innovation, we needed an industrial cluster. And industrial clusters are far away from cities, so you have to take the car. It's quite distant from the cities. And in the industrial cost cluster, we need cultural facilities, we need houses, and therefore we need a lot of budget. But it's about having a compact area close to the city where various functions can be delivered with culture, industry, and also serving as residential purposes as well. And if so, then innovation is sparked. In 1999, there was a shared space, the Cambridge Innovation Center, that was developed. And our Creative Economy Innovation Center actually was modeled after this. And the founders of this Cambridge Center was successful in facilitating this and made inroads into Europe as well as in Japan. But it was about the small-scale housing, multi-use complexes, small offices, stores, and these research units are all together, and they can and every all of these services can be accessed, and you can see what's going on in the community. And we call this the innovation district, and we actually have such a district in Korea, and in lower Manhattan and Tapestry of UK, and in Boston next to the harbor there is an innovation district, not the one next to MIT, but there's another one. And also Columbus is very well known for its innovation district. And with the emergence of these innovation districts, I think that we can create a startup center. But I think that would not be enough. We need some sort of an anchor. We need some organization to play an anchor. We had that creativity startup center, and it was about partnering with large companies, but it really didn't work out well. Therefore, we need a different type of anchor to bring this all together. And the role of the anchor would be to create an ecosystem and to simulate or demonstrate smart city technologies and engage in cross demonstration with other cities, engage in R&D, and offer financial or legal consulting services. And in addition to that, VC fund. Uh, we do see a lot of support being offered to venture companies these days, and it's about gathering this fund or pool of funds for startups. And we have Born Angels by Chairman Chang, and he was very successful with this Born Angels project. So it's about creating such an ecosystem. And once that's done, this can serve as a driving force for the cities. Yes, you've talked about the anchor. And in the examples, of course, there was a brief example in LA about the role of the academia, but not that much in our presentations. But I think at universities can play the role of an anchor because students are in the position to early adopt these technologies and try out these technologies. And within the campus, they do have a lot of opportunities to try this out, and maybe local universities can be a part of this to create newer jobs, as mentioned by Professor Yu. And Professor Yi talked about data, and well, because this is a virtual meeting, weren't able to entertain any questions from the floor. But in the interview, we talked about data privacy, especially some of the students talked about that. So is there any way to solve that?
보이는 게 있는데요.
Yes, actually, because of another project, I looked into that topic. But after the relevant law was implemented, I think that there is some room for maneuver. As you know, there is the non identifiable data that can be utilized. So, smart cities can provide a number of benefits, but I think that we have to exchange that with the privacy or personal information in some sense. So, for example, if let's say that there is advanced meter, it costs less than 100,000 won. And that advanced metering, once you have that, the electricity expense, the bill, goes down to less than 30,000 won per month, or it reduces the expense by about 30,000 won. But if the cost for getting advanced metering is 100,000, and if there are 1,000 households within one apartment complex, it's 100,000 times 1,000. How much is that? Is that 1 billion? Oh, it's a bit confusing. Let's do the math. So it's 1,000 households. How much is that? Yes, it's 100 million. So it only costs about 100 million for the developer, or the company providing the service, but 1,000 households can benefit. And of course, you need to provide some personal information or personal data. And you have to, of course, ask the people whether they are willing to give that personal data. But by giving that personal data, you can enjoy some benefits. And I think that that's the way forward. Yes, thank you very much. With the time constraint, why don't we ask the mayor about the data market? Well, how much has it been developed?
퍼센트
Regarding the data center, we're currently in phase 1 right now. And we're done with the engineering of that and moving on to phase 2. I think we still have some time.
그림은 그리고 있습니다.
Of course, we have the big picture in mind. What kind of clusters should we make, and also what kind of data should be collected and utilized? We have that in mind. So I think that we will be able to become a model case in Korea. Then actually the benefits will be provided to the people. Yes, of course. Now we have the challenge project, and so the transportation costs and the communication costs will go down, and also the electricity bill will go down as well. So these are the three major expenses for the people, and we're trying to drop that, decrease that. So it's about safety and convenience that we will provide as a benefit to the people. Yes, thank you very much. I think it's time to close the seminar. So we heard from 3 cities. We talked about their major policies and what's going on within the cities. And also at the same time, we invited 4 panelists to talk about the various issues concerning smart cities. And the question on my mind is, we're not trying to emphasize technology, but then we have to change the strategy for the smart cities. And so we need the help of many people in order to do that. So with the 5th World City Smart City Expo, we have invited many scholars, and also we have invited experts to share ideas. But I do hope that this kind of venue for communication will continue. And as we heard from the United States case, well, we need the channels for communication. And with such channels, I think that we will be able to further communicate our experience, and also the foreign experiences can be delivered to us as well. So I would like to thank Molit and also the Ministry of Science and ICT for preparing this event. Thank you very much.
네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. So that is the end of the panel discussion. Thank you very much, Chair Kim Gak-sun, for moderating the session, and Mayor Jang Duk-cheon and professors. Thank you very much. A big round of applause, please, for all of our panelists and moderator. Today, we talked about the smart city, and we exchanged views, and thank you very much for your insightful comments. And we've heard presentations from both home and abroad, and thank you very much for your contributions. Smart city, or human-centered smart city, requires cooperation on many fronts. And today is, well, not the end. There will be further discussions and conversations necessary on the smart city. And the World Smart City Expo, I hope you would join us continuously in the conversations and dialogue. I would like to extend my gratitude to all of the participants here offline, as well as our online participants. Thank you very much. And with that, let us conclude this conference. I am Kim Yeon-jin, your MC. Thank you very much for your participation.